Thank you, girls, and thank you for coming tonight, too. Thank you. Yes. I'll see you tomorrow. You sure will. Oh, you will not, but maybe another time when you come to Orchard View for Scouts. Okay, wonderful. Thank you parents for coming.
All right, we can go ahead and continue.
Madam Vice President, I'd like to motion to add an additional public comment after 4, 1 would be 4 for Kent ISD, but before the consent would be 5, making it 4D to have public comment on the agenda, additional public comment on the agenda item.
Okay. Do we have support for this motion? Okay, hearing none, we are going to be moving into our instructional highlight tonight, which is from our Orchard View Elementary Principal, Christina Mendoza.
Thank you. All right. Well, good evening. On behalf of Orchard View Elementary, a warm welcome to our distinguished school board members, Superintendent Ben Kirby, students who just left, some families are here, community members, staff members, and colleagues. I would like to thank Kelly Van Skyber, Orchard View's counselor, and Michelle Becker, Orchard View's instructional coach, right there. Together, we created this instructional highlight for you. Orchard View is home to 450 students. In addition to our kindergarten through 5th grade, Orchard View houses our district autism spectrum disorder program. It is truly a magical place to learn. With the vision of our central office and a generous grant, Orchard View partnered with Allison Nelson to strengthen our multi-tier system of supports. She is an education advisor for trauma-informed communities. Our work with her afforded us the opportunity to differentiate our approach to PBIS, our district initiative of positive behavior and intervention supports. Tonight, we share our unique journey. It began with professional learning for our staff. Our work with Allison centered on the connection between behavior and academics. She taught us the value of reset spaces. Every classroom has a spot where students can go to take a break from the rigor of learning and still remain part of the classroom community. Here is a teacher's perspective of the difference this learning has made in her practice.
The focus work with Allison Nelson reminded us that students can't learn if they don't feel seen or safe. She modeled how to build trust, manage emotions, and create space for every voice. When students and teachers process experiences together, it really matters. This shift in mindsets didn't just help my students grow, it helped me grow as a person and an educator. It has elevated a sense of belonging in our Orchard View community.
When we know better, we do better, and our students reap the benefit. With our focus on MTSS and the whole child, Orchard View holds teaching assemblies where we highlight and reinforce pride expectations. Here is Anvi, who shares the impact of these assemblies.
Hi, I'm Anvi from Mr. Adams' 5th grade class. I just wanted to talk to you guys about our HAWK assemblies for PBIS. I just love how our whole entire school gathers in the gym room and we get to learn about HAWK pride and like how to love each other. And it's just so fun to see all the children that are learning.
In one of our assemblies, we reminded students of dependability at Orchard View. We video recorded students showing non-dependable and dependable ways to line up. During our assembly then, we asked our students, after seeing the video, for a thumbs up if they saw dependable behavior and a thumbs down if they didn't. We even recruited our Pride Pup Belle to acknowledge whether their answers were right or wrong. Let's watch one segment here. We work hard at Tier 1, where every student feels they belong. Another type of assembly is to celebrate and acknowledge the positive behaviors of our students. In this video clip, we focus on respect. Let's listen to our music teacher with a couple of our talented and very courageous students, Kendall and Jack, as they perform a homegrown rap. Our differentiated approach to implementing PBIS is showcased with our first grade and fifth grade. Their creative interpretation supports our continued work with a positive culture at Orchard View. Our first grade team teaches Pride expectations, then they incorporate a stuffed animal that represents each expectation. Teachers acknowledge students who exemplify that trait and give the student an animal for that day. Students are starting to recognize these traits in each other and oftentimes want to nominate a peer. Anna shares her pride as she received a dependable dog.
My name is Anna. I'm in first grade with Miss T. I earned dependable dog because one day I was late and the next day I did my work right. It made me feel really proud.
Our fifth grade team uses our PBIS acknowledgement system, Hawk tickets, for a pride push at the end of the year. As students are recognized for positive behavior, they place their ticket into a raffle box of their choice. Students voted on the top 10 prizes they would like to receive. We choose a name from each box at the end of May and the beginning of June. Let's hear from Jackson about the impact this has on him.
Hi, my name is Jackson. I'm in 5th grade at Orchard View. Ms. Hooks is my teacher. The end of the year PBIS push is helping me and to make good decisions because it really motivates me and other kids to work hard for prizes. It makes me feel like we can push on until 6th grade. Teachers are looking for good behavior, and this PBIS push is helping all of us do our best.
This is by no means about the destination. It is truly about the journey. With the continued support of our district, the focus on MTSS, and the dedication of our teachers, Orchard View will continue to pursue excellence. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a very aware dog.
Are you curious about how we did that?
I am curious because I have a dog that might, use some help, but very, very cool. And it's cool
Yes.
to hear other kids talk about being recognized for positive behavior and also advertising it to their classmates and their peers. Nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks for putting that together.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm gonna plug this, so there it goes. Let it go, there we go.
So feel free to go home.
Oh,
I know.
okay, you got it, okay, great, thanks. All right, boss, I will. Thank you so much. That's great.
All right, we are up to the point in our agenda where we have a presentation tonight from Ron Gorman and Kyle Cray from the Intermediate School District about our ISD enhancement millage in November.
Wonderful. Well, good evening. Thank you for allowing us to present this evening. Vice President, green light. That's how you know it works. So, Vice President Tryon, I said that correctly? Thank you. Distinguished board members, Superintendent Kirby, again, thank you for allowing us to be here this evening. I'm joined by Kyle Cray from Seaforth PR, and we are here to talk about the enhancement millage renewal. You are probably aware that if you were around schools in 2017, we passed an enhancement millage. This enhancement millage was for 0.9 mils, which is 90 cents for $1,000 of taxable value. So that went from 2017, and it is going to go until 2027. So it is now our opportunity to try to renew it. And so what we ask of you is that your next board meeting, you would put this on your agenda to approve this proposal. So that's what we are asking you to do at your next board meeting. So let me just tell you a little bit as to how these funds were spent last time. These are unrestricted funds, so the school district can determine how it wants to use the funds. This slide is specific to your school district. So if you look at the lower right corner, you use the enhancement millage for hiring elementary teachers and retention, hiring middle school teachers and retention, and hiring high school teachers and retention efforts as well. Many districts throughout our county use these funds for technology upgrades, 3rd grade reading, 8th grade math, and CTE across the region. You are probably aware that at the ISD we are really bursting at the seams as it pertains to career and technical education. We have a tech center that is full with about 1,500 students on the waiting list. So therefore, many districts use these funds to incorporate CTE into their local programs. As it relates to timing, many folks may believe this is relatively quick to go out for an enhancement millage renewal. We're incredibly sensitive to timing. There will be lots on the ballot in 26. We want to get out in 25 so that all of the focus is on schools. There are a few school districts that are going out for bond proposals. in November as well. You can see those on the slide: Byron Center, East Grand Rapids, Godwin Heights, Granville, Rockford, and Wyoming. How they are framing this in those school districts is they're saying our bond is for building upgrades or facilities, and the enhancement millage renewal is more for maybe instructional services, much like you've done here in Forest Hills. We are asking the taxpayers to restore the millage to 0.9 mils. When Kyle presents, he's going to share with you how at times that can be, that amount can be scaled back because of Headley reduction, and he will get into explaining that to you in just a second. As it relates to polling, our polling numbers are incredibly promising. You may know last time that it passed by a slim margin, 52 to 48. Our polling numbers are showing for renewal. We are close to 70% yes or likely yes, so that's pretty good. And that's exclusively with an informational campaign. Of course, as a school district, we can only do an informational campaign, but if a private entity wanted to do a yes campaign, that may increase the odds of this passing. But again, just with an informational campaign, it's about 70% yes or likely yes. One major change this time that was not included last time are charter schools. There was some legislation a couple of years ago that said if you go out for enhancement millage renewal, that charter schools need to be included in the request. As of right now, we're getting about $300 per student in your school district, and you will see on our last slide how significant that is to Forest Hills. With the inclusion of charter schools, that number will be reduced slightly. When I say slightly, probably $20 to $25 or so. Right now, there are 100,000 students approximately in Kent County. 10,000 of those students are charter school students. Only Kent ISD can ask for this enhancement millage. So this is something that only we can do. ISD will be covering the costs for the enhancement millage renewal, and so therefore it will not cost school districts anything. As it relates to acquiring the services of Seafirth, all the work that we are doing from a comms perspective, everything related to the election, the ISD will be paying for all of that. Our request cannot exceed 3 mils, so you can see the 0.9 mils is what we have requested, and sometimes folks say, well, why don't you ask for even more? Polling has shown that that's a number that our community is comfortable with, so therefore we are sticking with that number. And we can also ask for a millage that goes to 20 years. Polling has also shown that our community is comfortable with 10 years, and it's amazing how quickly 10 years go by. Lastly, before I have Kyle come up and explain Headley a little bit, we need to ensure that 51% of the students are represented for this to go onto the ballot in November. So our larger school districts, when we think of Grand Rapids, Forest Hills, Kentwood, etc., we will need their support, your support, to get this onto the ballot, because we can only get it onto the ballot if we have representation of 51% of the students across the county. And with the charter schools being included, again, that's a smaller number, but again, our larger districts really need to support this if we want to get it on the ballot. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Kyle so he can talk about Headley rollback and override. Kyle?
Dr. Gorman. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kyle Frey. As Dr. Gorman shared, I am a consultant with Seafirth. In a previous life, I was the Director of Communications for Grand Rapids Public Schools, spent about 10 years there, and actually ran this millage back in 2017. So I am familiar with it. I'm going to talk to you about Headley rollback and override. So as you'll notice, it's not a flat renewal. We're saying restore and renew. Because of the override, we have to restore the override and then renew the full 9/10 of mils. So the Headley Amendment is a 1978 constitutional amendment that restricts local property taxes by requiring a reduction in millage rates if the tax base grows faster than inflation. So annually, this happens automatically at municipalities. The first time, I think it was the first year we had that 0.9, and then every year after that there was a rollback. And again, that rollback is automatic. The override, the only mechanism is voter approval. So you'll see two bars on this chart. The blue bar is the original 9 mills that we requested in 2017. And then the red bar shows the restoration and renewal. So because of heavy override, we've had that 0.0422 mills reduced. Now these numbers, you're going to see a slight change in your resolution because we just got this year's numbers, so they've been updated again. So these numbers might not match it exactly, but, and then it has been reduced to the 0.8578 mills. So the request, it's one request, but the request is going to be a restore the 0.0422 mills and renew the full 9/10 mills. So the reason I stress that is because our polling was good, but one thing we know, and we just saw this in the May elections, almost every renewal passed. I think only 2 failed in the state. Half of new millages failed. This is not a new millage, but that nuance of the restoration and renewal may, some voters may have some questions around that. But I think this bar shows you it's the same 9/10 we asked for in 2017.
Okay, so in closing, you can see that $2.9 million number. That is the amount that Forest Hills Public Schools receives every single year from the enhancement millage. If that number were to go away, that would be incredibly significant. It's a large dollar amount. On this last page, it says that Kent ISD is working on a resolution. Those have now been completed as of today. So I believe that we may have sent them to you so that those can be shared with the board. Again, our hope is that you will vote on this resolution at the next meeting. And with that, I thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, I would love to answer.
Thank you so much for
Thank
coming.
Wonderful, thank you.
All right, we are up to our consent grouping. Is there anything that anyone wants to pull out for separate consideration before we vote and discuss?
Yes, I would like to pull out VB4, Kent ISD budget, and also VC1, junior kindergarten curriculum. And then I have a question about pulling things out. I thought last time we did the ratification of contracts, that we did that separately, not in consent grouping. So I was thinking that those would be, they would be separate.
These were in the, at the finance committee meeting, right on the consent agenda.
Okay, that's what I wanted, I just wanted to put that, just those 2 items. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So then first, can I get a motion to approve consent grouping items VA through VB3?
You want to start early? Sure, motion for those.
Okay. Okay, so we don't have anything, do you wanna go ahead and do your finance report since that is part of those?
Certainly.
Okay.
Yeah, do we, okay, so we'll take it in chunks?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yes, happy to, well, we need a second and then we'll go in.
Second.
Thank you, okay. Yes, finance meeting, this month was we had a good meeting. Financial statements are in our packet, no notable outliers, except one that we'll point to in just a second. We received a nice bond construction update again. Everything is on pace as it has been. Pine Ridge and Eastern Middle going well. We've got students and players on the fields at Eastern and Northern. A couple additional kind of end of project items still happening there, but they're in use, which is excellent. Fun to see. Central High School starts next month after school lets out. And then we've got a number of schools in their planning phases. The one notable item on the monthly financial statement was our debt payment being made this month. You noticed that number 26.5 million. That's planned, that's scheduled. We pay twice a year on our debt. May is interest only, or I'm sorry, November is interest only. May is principal and interest. So that's that large number that we see on our May finances. And then we discussed some of our debt and capital investing and just ways that our business office is always working with our banking partners on where our money is housed and what it does while it's sitting there and ways that it is secured and overly secured. So we had a good review of that and some good moves being made to further increase the security of the funds that are entrusted to us, to the district. So thank you to the business office for those efforts. And that took us to our action items. We just had a few. The first was for some additional surveillance cameras around the district. We'll recall a year ago in May, we approved 58 cameras to be placed in additional areas. And this ask is for 40 additional cameras, 32 interior and 8 exterior cameras to be placed across 15 different campus sites. So this was an additional walk around that revealed additional opportunities to just further enhance our security across our many campuses. These will be coming from Avigilon, or they are Avigilon cameras from People Driven Technology for an amount not to exceed $127,100, and that is funded through that 31AA grant. The second is an annual item, a renewal of our food service management contract with Chartwells for the 25-26 school year. We've been part of the Chartwell since 1979. We bid this out last year and put contract language in place that we have the ability to renew for up to 4 years. So this is the first year of that renewal. And it's a 3% increase in those costs that was negotiated last year. So those details are in there. The next item is the, we'll skip the Kent ISD budget. We'll talk about that separately. The next item is another annual item for our auditing of our financial statements. And the recommendation is to renew our agreement with Manica Starrison to audit our financial statements from the 24-25 school year. We're familiar with them, long-term partner, a lot of school district experience. That's an amount not to exceed $61,000 from the general fund. And our final piece was a property tax reimbursement for $132,619.35 to the city of Kentland. That's all.
And then for curriculum, we had just one main thing on the agenda this month, and that was to hear a presentation from some of our instructional coaches and also teacher about our Quick Reads supplemental resource that we actually approved in April. But we just kind of heard a much more in-depth presentation about that resource. So this is a research-based supplemental resource for literacy instruction that really focuses on fluency and comprehension. And so those are just like what it sounds like, quick reads that kids can do to practice that skill of fluency and comprehension. And they're on a wide variety of interest topics that kids can read. One of the really cool things about Quick Reads is that there is a component built into it where students can self-monitor and almost benchmark themselves and keep track of their own progress in those areas as they work through the different Quick Reads that their teachers assign them to do. Getting kids to self-monitor and set goals for themselves based on how they're doing is a really high-level skill in a classroom. And I think it's really interesting that this is built into that resource, kind of teaches them along the way. And also another notable thing about this resource is that it is full of home school connection ideas for parents to help their student become a stronger reader. In education, we know that just saying read more doesn't necessarily make a kid a better reader. Because if they're struggling to read fluently or they're struggling to comprehend what they're reading more doesn't necessarily fix that. And so this program gives parents very specific things they can do with their individual child that will increase their reading ability. So I think that's a pretty cool feature of Quick Reads as well. So that was what we heard presentation-wise, and then in terms of recommendations for tonight, we just simply have the district is looking for us to approve the Great First 8 curriculum for our junior kindergartners. Okay. All right, so then can I have a motion to, well, I guess after that we'll do any further discussion on those items? so then, so can we please have a roll call vote for those items, in consent grouping VA through, 1 second, I gotta leave the other one out. VA through VB3 and VB5 and VB6.
You just had a motion for the first.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. Okay.
We'll do that, and then we can do it in- that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so then can I have a roll call vote for, items VA through VB3?
Dr. Rashad?
Yes.
Ms. Cannard?
Yes.
Ms. DeBoer?
Yes.
Mr. Colley?
Yes.
Ms. Ryan?
Yes.
Ms. Nymeyer, yes.
Okay, so then, did you want to do further discussion on VB4?
Well, actually, I wouldn't mind hearing the report from CJ, it's fine. The only reason I pulled out of the consent grouping is because I spent a lot of time this last month and this last week on answering questions pertaining to the other item that I'm taking out of consent, and because of that, I didn't get my full time I wanted to spend on the 45 pages that were given to us for the last 8 days on the budget, so I'm really just pulling out to vote separately on it. I just don't wanna vote on something I don't fully, had the time to really look into and dive into and ask questions on, so, if you wanna give your report on that, I'm just pulling it out for a separate vote.
That's fine. I don't have much of a report in terms of a summary, because it's a long document, obviously. Assistant Superintendent Davis summarized it for us, and that summary was in the packet as well, kind of some of the major budget areas, and where the spending was. Changes from last year and where new funds are being allocated or changed. And also, other than our own personal review of it, it has a seal of approval of the business office as well, who sees it in depth, and understands it better probably than I could with 108 days to take a look at it. So that means a lot as well. But, right, it's not, I mean, we'll have to vote on it either way, I guess. So if you don't feel like you are informed to do that.
I would just acknowledge that, yes, Assistant Superintendent Davis brought it forward. I also had the opportunity, Ken ISD, Kevin Phillips, the Assistant Superintendent for Finance, and Dr. Gorman spent time with the superintendents explaining those budgets. And with that, with the understanding of those items, as well as the work that happens with Assistant Superintendent Davis's group looking at those budgets, we moved it forward, being that it is something that we support as well. And that's why we brought it to the Finance Committee and has been in there for review. There's a lot of, details in those things, but ultimately, this particular budget, you guys have a responsibility for, knowing a little bit more of the details. We've really tried to dive into the Kent ISD budgets to understand how it impacts us, as well as all the other surrounding schools as well. So I guess that's what I would offer you, that we are in support of it. That's why we brought it forward, in recognizing that they're spending money in a way that is best for the students and making sure that the programming is in place across the county.
I'm just saying that for personally for me, I didn't, I wanted to wrap my head around, like, personal time on it, was a responsibility.
How much time would you like in the future?
Well,
Or you can tell me later.
I
guess
don't know,
I'm just
I
speaking,
guess
like,
for
what
me is
that
that
looks like.
we had a brand new curriculum, this one, going over a budget, 45-page budget. We also had, this is a busy month for us, so it's, but, I wanna feel comfortable about my
Sure.
role for
Okay.
that, so yeah.
Okay, all right.
All right, so then can we get a roll call?
Motion to approve that first.
Right, so we've had discussion on
Right,
it.
'cause I pulled it out.
Yeah.
So I'm a motion that we approve item BB4.
We need a roll call vote for VB4.
Dr. Rashad?
Yes.
Ms. Cannard?
Yes.
Ms. DeBoer?
No.
Mr. Colley?
Yes.
Ms. Ryan?
Yes.
Ms. Nymeyer, yes.
All right, and then can we get a motion to approve items
Rashad?
Yes.
Ms. Commode?
Yes.
Ms. DeBoer?
Yes.
Mr. Colley?
Yes.
Ms. Tryon?
Yes.
Ms. Mennemeyer, yes.
So then, can I get a motion to approve consent grouping item VC1?
So moved.
Second. Okay, so do we have any discussion on that?
Yes. So when we were in the curriculum meeting last week, I was pretty excited to hear about some of the components that were in the new junior kindergarten, like the farm to table, wheels in motion, and some of the other things that they had brought. And so I had a chance to read a lot of emails from and have good discussions with community members in regards to the curriculum. And I did email Nell Duke, and I went on and read a lot of just different things surrounding the curriculum. There were a few, there were some concerns that arise, and so I guess that's where I spent some time on, and it wasn't that I needed to ask additional questions about it. I guess I was just curious, I just kind of wanted to share some of the findings that I found through this. So, so in reviewing the Great First Aid curriculum, I realized there were many questions that were needing answering, and the community was reaching out. We got emails in regards to that. So I first asked the question and inquired about getting a book list for the curriculum, because there were several things that said that they had to have books with the curriculum as part of the mandatory things that they were going to have in the classroom. And so I was able to read and go over and actually got a book called Bodies Are Cool, so if anybody wants to look at that. And through that, this book is actually so far is mandatory reading twice within the curriculum, I'll just say. In it, this book illustrates and celebrates body diversity, highlighting the differences that extend far beyond the mere shape, size, skin color, and hair color. And I was a little concerned about some of the illustrations that were depicting body types. There is transformative surgery in here showing double mastectomies and scars. These women are then posing with no shirts on in this book. So if this is something you guys want to look at, I would suggest it's right on the front cover too, and as well as inside. I was a little concerned presenting this material to our most vulnerable population. We have children that are ages 4 and 5, and I just didn't think that, I just think it raised significant questions regarding appropriateness and sensitivity. And I think this was it's a controversial subject in our community, and I think this is something that we talk at home between a parent and child. So that was the one thing I found out was an additional questions in it, except for the fact of, it just got me to dig a little bit further. Since then, I have reached out to Mel Duke because I was advised to inquire about the book list by going into each individual unit on here, finding the book, pulling it out, and reviewing the book. And so I found out Mel Duke said that we could just ask for it, and as long as we were reviewing it and looking into it, that she would provide the list for us. So I'm just waiting for the email back for that. The foundation of this curriculum is transformative SEL and social justice. And I know there's a lot of other great components mixed into that, but it does remain, and the DEI remains a fundamental component of this curriculum alongside topics related to racial, gender, and social justice. Despite the executive order advocating for its removal, and I know we have things tied up in the court system, but we continue to allocate resources to this initiative. And I think junior kindergarten is optional. And if we aim to attract families to our new program, we should prioritize more appropriate subject matter for our youngest and most vulnerable community members. Moreover, I think we should consider compliance with federal regulations under Title IX. And does this satisfy the federal regulations, and are we truly prepared to jeopardize our federal funding by pursuing this course of action? So that was some concerns, especially, and this is only one book that I've been able to, there's another book that I was able to read as well. in this, they talked about, let me skip that one. It kind of stipulates an all or none approach to this curriculum. So if you accept the curriculum, you accept all of the curriculum. There's no substitutions. There's no you have to do this. We saw this really great presentation that Christina Mendoza just did on PBIS. And in there, it also says that you are not to adapt. Let me find this, where this is at. I'm gonna get back to it, but that you're not allowed to adapt find it. It says, you're not using a behavior management approach that involves using tokens and prizes to reward good behavior undermines the great first aid approach, which teaches children to behave in ways that benefit both themselves and their community without tokens or prizes for doing so. So the question there would be, would this conflict with our PBIS program that we just heard about, which offers tickets, right? And it offers the dog that Anna received for behavior for dependability. I'm concerned that if we implement it in its entirety, what does this do? What does this curriculum impose on and restrictions on our educators? This mentality undermines the creativity of teachers who may have alternate, potential, more effective methods of engaging in their students. And I just feel like our teachers understand the demographics in the classroom, they understand our teachers, and if their hands are tied to a certain curriculum they actually have to abide by, and there's no way to go to the left or the right, what does that do to our instructors in the classroom? I was a little concerned, and that's in there. It does say there's very strict guidelines about what you can and can't do on that. I have a concern regarding the data collection assorting with this curriculum. That one's not fully answered, but there's this data collection on this, and I'm understanding that it's something to do with their devices, and maybe you can correct me later if I'm wrong on this, but the data mining what they're on their devices, on their iPads, and I guess my question is, and it never was really fully answered, is who's collecting it, where is it going, what's it going for? And so I was a little concerned with that as well. When we had in the past, I think there was a Lucy Calkins curriculum that was introduced. I've had conversations with teachers in the past with the experience of what they had when they went through that. A lot of them had really high reading scores at the time when Lucy Calkins was introduced. It was an experimental curriculum that the test scores actually went lower. And they kind of felt like that's not the direction they needed to go, and I think they wish they would have listened to the inner sides of what was going on. So my question is are we kind of dealing with something else that's maybe experimental? So, and it's new, right? They're looking for schools to adopt this program coming this fall, and they're reaching out. It's even on their website that they're looking for schools to do this. I am concerned. And this is something I raised in the curriculum meeting about where the demographic is for this. I have a quote from Nell that states, hang on a second, see if I can find it. An email from Nell Duke that I wanted to read as well. She states, quote, "We think our curriculum is the most research-aligned, fully comprehensive curriculum available, and in the sense we think it's the best. But we need to be transparent about our centering children from historically underrepresented racial and ethnic backgrounds in designing it. For example, the majority of the books, although it's far from all, that are read to children are written and/or illustrated by people from historically underrepresented racial and ethnic backgrounds," end quote. So in all of that, I mean, we can discuss this if we want, but I think what I'm looking at is I would like to research this further and look into it. So I'm actually looking for two things. One, if we want to have a discussion about it, and or two, I would like to motion to have more time to dive into this. I've only scratched the surface. We're just looking at the books for the curriculum, and they're mandated. Like, these are the books you have to do. There is a little bit of legroom that teachers can pick books along the subject line, but then I feel like I'm back to square one with some of the concerns that we have in the community about having book clubs with controversial matter in it. Where do we control? And they said some of the teachers have said that that was board-approved curriculum, and it wasn't, right? Some of the books that were used. This is board-approved curriculum. If we do this, this is board-approved curriculum, because it's part of the program. It's all, you have to accept it all. So I just kind of wanted to share my concerns with it. You know, this is a recommendation. It's a recommendation. It's a recommendation from the curriculum committee, from curriculum, and which means we get to vote on it. It's a recommendation. So I just kind of wanted to share. I mean, there's more, I don't want to overpower with it, but I think these were things that were very concerning to me in the scope of what I was able to look into for this, so.
Any further discussion on that?
A lot there. I guess to your final point, I think you shortchanged perhaps where this recommendation came from. This recommendation came from a big cohort of people who we consider to be experts in the area of elementary education in our district. I trust their review and their expertise and their knowledge of how elementary education, especially for our youngest learners, has evolved into this new curriculum, which are not wrong. It's a newer curriculum. It's not that there's a lot of experience with this in particular, but it builds very clearly on prior curriculums, and seems to take the best aspects of those things. And I put a lot of faith in the recommendation from a committee of the people that we asked to review these things, because I think they're very knowledgeable and very good at what they do and very aware of other options that are available. So that does mean a lot to me, at least from that aspect of it. From the diversity aspect, I disagree fully, I guess. I don't know. My house has got a lot of kids that are age 5 and around there in it. I don't think a single one of them would see a picture of a double mastectomy and think something transformative or think something, untoward, or make a decision about their own bodies, because I think that teaches them about people who experience that real life thing. And that when they're confronted with that, maybe they have some knowledge to pull from to welcome that person and to have a positive interaction with that person, instead of wondering what that is and pointing at whatever. I think books being read by non-white authors and books being illustrated by non-white illustrators, that's only a benefit to people who are white and all people. I don't see a single drawback to that. We talk a lot about the bubble of Forest Hills, and it is not the bubble that it was. I mean, when you look at our student population now, it's quite different than it was decades ago, which maybe some of us are recalling, those times. But even if it were, this is a great way to enhance diversity and show our students how to be worldly learners and contributors to the greater, environments and communities outside of our own, where maybe populations are not majority white or whatever, wherever they go. And that's our whole goal, is to not create worldly people who can go to other communities and contribute. So I think of those things as positives. And same with the teacher restriction piece. I think I understand that all of our curriculums have rules and standards and guidelines with which our amazing educators, manipulate and massage and work through, in all kinds of ways, at all levels. So I'm not really worried about a curriculum, restricting our good educators' ability to be creative with it and to direct, learning at individual students and whatever. So I don't know, I feel like I've had enough time to review it. I think I understand well enough, and again, I put a lot of weight into the recommendation being brought to us, knowing all the hoops it has already jumped through and all the boxes that have already been checked.
I think too, and I want to tread lightly on behalf of teachers. Teachers being asked to follow a curriculum with fidelity is not new to any teacher. This is how most curriculums are given to teachers. It's why they go through copious amounts of training, how to implement that curriculum, how to modify that curriculum. And I do believe that our teachers are intelligent enough to know when something might need to be adjusted based on the kids that are in front of them. That absolutely happens every single day with curriculum. Even curriculum that is said, we need you to follow this to a T. Every teacher will modify when they need to. And I think it's problematic to infer that they don't know that they can do that, because they absolutely do. So that's what I would say about that particular piece of it. I also think we need to be careful that just because a curriculum is stated that it was initially written for underrepresented populations, in no way means that it is a remedial curriculum. Many times those curriculums are full of much more scaffolding, many more engagement strategies, much more guiding practice. And so we know in education that a best practice for one group of kids is very, very often a best practice for all of our students. And we've seen that happen with many different programs, not just grade first 8. So I feel like this is very research backed. It is rooted, as you said, Dr. Rashad, in already well-established best practice in literacy instruction, especially. Now Luke is famous for her ability to create fertile ground for literacy instruction. And so I don't share those same concerns, and I too have looked through it quite a bit.
Were you able to go through any of the books in the unit? And
Yes,
go
I've
out?
actually read many of those books to my own children already in years past.
So, I mean, I guess this is the question, so we're okay with a woman with a double mastectomy walking around with no shirt on and having the kids accept that is a normality.
I think that
I don't
there
think
is
my
a
child would
slippery
notice that at
slope
all.
happening here that is kind of rooted in a little bit of fear that you believe this is going to be like a full day dwelling on this book if it even gets read with that much depth anyway. And so I feel like to throw out a whole curriculum potentially based on a book, one book that we don't even know if that's going to actually be read. Like I said just a minute ago, teachers have the ability to modify and adjust, and I have seen them do it many times. I don't know that would do it for me, and I think that some of these kids might have moms who have had double mastectomies.
Right, but their moms aren't walking around shirtless either. So what I'm saying is that this is mandatory. This is part of the, so when you say that you may not have to read it, it is mandatory, but it has to be read. I mean, all of these things that Nell Duke was saying, there's the program and that's what it's saying. And I know if teachers are allowed to fluctuate and put in their own creativity in that, it should really say that. It doesn't say that. It's saying that this is not anything that they're accepting. I'm wondering if it's because they're bringing in and they're pulling in data, so they need to see the data. If you're doing the curriculum as a whole and keeping it all together and doing exactly what they've asked you to do, is that a portion of it?
What would that data collection process look like?
Well, that's why I have no clue. Nobody can answer that question. Nobody can answer the data question right now. So it's just they're collecting data. They're collecting data for what? I guess I'm really concerned.
I mean, we collect data every day in every single classroom, right? For a multitude of things, whether it's test scores, formative assessments, summative assessments. Data is being collected nonstop by teachers and schools so that we can put kids in win time groups. We can figure out where we need to address behaviors differently. That's not unique to any curriculum.
I understand that, but I'm reading what they're telling us what this is. I'm not making stuff up. I'm reading what she has. I've got an email into her again asking more questions about this. And so it seems like it's very strict guidelines with this. This is what it is. It's like an all or none. Either you accept it, we're looking into this for the next 3 years. A lot of the stuff in the units I've looked into is dealing with what people look like on the outside instead of focusing on what I think would be what they've been talking about, PBIS. You have
hope, generosity, truthfulness, hard work, responsibility, contentment, self-control, persistence, peace, dependability. Those would be great things to teach a young 4 or 5-year-old. Not each step of the way is talking about the outward appearance of a lot of people. It's really is about what's on the inside of us as well. So
I feel like that is in there, though. Yes, there is that, but.
well, and I'm a little concerned too about some of the things that we've been asked that have been on the executive orders. And I know they're tied up in the courts right now, but we're really gonna spend money on something and go down the road to have it possibly have it reversed, and then we're gonna have to look at something completely different anyway. So some of the subject matter that is in here that I looked at is violating Title IX. You've got, we have attached funding to that. So.
That's a big assertion to make. Who is making, is that your opinion?
That was not my opinion. It's the
I
stuff
just-
that I'm looking at. I mean, we're
I
bound
understand.
to obey federal law. We're bound to obey. So the subject matters and the things that I'm looking into are showing us that we won't be obeying federal law through this. And I'm like, it's a gamble. We're really gambling that. So,
I'm not sure what federal laws we would be. I
I'm
heard what
saying
you said
Title
about
IX.
executive orders, which aren't laws, and they are tied up, which are also those indicators of what people are supposed to do to follow. So those haven't really been established.
right.
Doesn't have anything to do with admission, doesn't have anything to do with financial aid, doesn't have anything to do with scholarships, prizes, administrative support, or job opportunities. So I can't make that leap, so I would, like to understand that a little bit more. If, I'm not sure how much time, we'll discuss this, but none of those pieces that are tied to an executive order that hasn't been rolled out by the departments yet, I'm not sure how it would be impacted.
Well, it's Title IX. The executive orders have stuff to do with the DEI right now. So it's a completely different. So I guess my motion would be to look at it for another month and come back to the table for this. That would be, and I can motion that effectively, put in words.
If I just add, I think there's something to be said for having, respect for our teachers in the preparation process. The reason that it's sitting before us tonight is so that, one, the materials can be ordered, assembled, and then teachers can be trained and have a good several months to delve in, to digest, to plan. And if we keep tabling on something that our top tier literacy experts in the district have already gone through, I think we are not promising our kids the best experience in the fall. So that is why I am ready to vote.
Is there any more discussion about this agenda item before we take a vote? Okay. Can I get a roll call vote on item BC1?
Dr. Michaud?
Yes.
Ms. Commode?
Yes.
Ms. DeBoer?
No.
Mr. Colley?
Yes.
Ms. Tran?
Yes.
Ms. Meimer, yes.
All right, so the next item on our agenda is about the Kent ISD School Board election resolution. The board is required to adopt a resolution every year designating who will vote on our behalf for the Kent ISD School Board election and who we will vote for in that election in June. There are 2 board members who are running again for their seats. They are also already serving on the board. Nobody is challenging them. So our job is to designate our representative to go vote for these 2 candidates on June 2nd at their meeting. So can I have a motion to adopt the resolution designating the district's election representative for the Kent ISD School Board and designate Kelly Kermode as the FHPS district representative with Dr. Michaud as the alternate, who will cast a vote on behalf of the board for David Drake and Laura Featherston.
A motion. Second.
Any further discussion on that? voice vote for this. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We are up to some information items from Superintendent Kirby.
Yeah, as far as information, we just had the one resignation by our Director of Student Services, Grant, and we have been working through the process to find a replacement.
And then, do you want to just roll that into your
Yeah,
superintendent's
Sure,
report?
yes, I can continue on. So, we talked a lot about our student data, and, we have definitely listened and heard, and, have been putting things into place, and, really looking forward to the fall, and identifying some of those areas we've been able to identifying strategies as we move forward. So, we had 3 stakeholder groups, that we surveyed, our parent group, our student group, and our employee group, and I wanted to share what our wins were with those particular groups, as well as those opportunities for growth. So those wins are those survey questions that rated the highest. And so then the opportunities for growth would be the ones that were rated the lowest when we had our particular participation. So there also was a net promoter score that was created through these surveys. And this is the baseline data for us, so this helps us move forward. We'll be doing surveys twice a year moving forward. Our parent group, and I would just say that net promoter scores, you can have a -100 to a +100, so it's a very large group. And our net promoter score for parents was 52.5, which is a very high net promoter score. It is in the upper tier. And that is excellent and sustaining excellence, so we'll continue to strive there. It is hard to maintain at that really high level, but that's what we will continue to aspire to do. So from our parents, they recognize that they feel as though they're treated very well at the schools, which is fantastic. So this is our organizational data. It's all of our schools and departments combined. And then the second highest was they felt that the students had necessary classroom supplies and equipment for effective learning. So that's great. And then the third highest was the school is clean and well maintained. So that was some feedback that we got from our parents. So those are good things, obviously. As far as opportunities for growth, our parents told us they wanted to have a better understanding of how rules are enforced in the schools, and understanding, consistency and all that. This really allowed us to have a lot of conversation from a leadership team, what that might look like. So we have talked about that quite a bit. And we'll continue to talk about that in June. We have another meeting that will dive into our data a little bit more. And then the next area that rated the lowest was the amount of feedback that they got from school staff on their child's learning. And that would be outside of the report card time. So parents really wanted to know more about their child's progress, during the school year outside of those reporting times. And then the third piece was really receiving positive phone calls, emails, and notes about their child from the school, just to give them, some updates and some positives as they move their way through the school year. So those were our parents. Any questions on that? Okay. Then next are at our students. Our students, the big wins with the students, which is consistent with what the parents said. They feel that their families are treated nicely and with respect at school, and they had a tie that learning is important at their school. So obviously those two pieces are very good. And then opportunities to be successful seem to be abundant according to our students at school. And then there was a tie, so I'll share a fourth one, that they enjoy their specials and their electives that they have across our district K-12. Our opportunities for growth from the student perspective was, as far as the ones that were rated the lowest, healthy food choices for them to eat at lunch. So one of the things that we're doing when we're walking around is understanding what that means. Does that mean that they want more food? Does that mean that the food they have isn't healthy, or do they want it to taste better? What does all that mean? So it's been interesting just going around and talking to the students, and I just asked them, and others asked them, what did you think that meant when you answer that question, just to try to better understand that. Lots of healthy food choices based on federal guidelines and so on. I would contend that those old french fries that we used to eat tasted a lot better than we, have now that's so much healthier. So at any rate, it's continued learning for us. Field students, so the second lowest rated for our students was students are nice or show respect to each other at school. So that's one that really, speaks to us that we need to continue to do work with the peer-to-peer relations and a lot of the behaviors that we're dealing with and how it's impacting our students. We know it's heavy on them. And then the third lowest that they had was I like going to school each day. So again, tied to the second one, not sure. So again, asking that question, if I ask the high school students, which I have a number of them, how did you answer that question? They're like, well, there's other things I'd rather do than come to school. Like I could go to the pool, I could go to the beach, I could go play basketball, all of those things. So as we go through these cycles, students will understand, and parents and employees, what these different questions mean. We'll understand how people are answering them. That'll help inform us as we move forward. As far as any questions on the student pieces?
Is there a net promoter score for that?
Yes, we have a net promoter score for each of our groups. That one was a 7.37. And again, baseline for us to know where we're at. As far as employees, our wins for our employee groups was they feel that their individual work positively impacts the students that they serve, which is fantastic. It's great that we know that our employees know that they're making a difference. If we are in an organization where people question that, we wouldn't have this level of success for our students or with our students and each other. The second big win was I have a clear understanding of my expectations as an employee, which is good for me to hear, just so that I understand that people know what it is that's expected of them as employees. And then the third highest was I believe that leaders in my immediate work area or environment are generally concerned for my welfare. So see that as a school, would be your principals, your assistant principals, department, be your department leaders, and so on. So there is an understanding of the care that the direct leaders are giving our employees. So that's fantastic. As far as our opportunities for growth, the theme really is the further away from the classroom, the more needs for growth there is. So we recognize that. The first is I have the opportunity to provide input on decisions that affect my job. People clearly not necessarily always understanding why decisions are made, so we need to do a better job of that communication and trying to really build that trust that we've talked so much about. And then I feel that the organizational culture supports open and honest communication. So again, more of that communication, feedback loop, and those things are something that we're going to continue to work on. And then the third, I feel that organization level resources are allocated to maximize effectiveness across the organization, which is interesting when our parents were telling us they felt that the students had what was necessary for them to be successful. So again, this is another one that when we're going out, we're talking with our staff, well, what does that mean? And this one is all over the place. It's at anywhere from professional development to added positions, more people in the same position, those types of things, curricular materials. So this one was really quite a catch-all. So it really helps understand, why it might be rated lower, because people were thinking of it, in so many different ways. So that net promoter score was a -2.5. So again, that gives us our basis. So as we continue, we will be continuing to try to improve our net promoter scores as well as impact these areas for growth. Each time we will always have 3 big wins, and we'll always have 3 areas to improve on for as long as we do this. So those are the areas that we're going to be focusing on as we get into June and get ready for the fall. We'll put strategies in place to try to impact some of these things. So.
How often do you see us doing this survey?
We'll do the surveys twice a year. We're looking at November and April-ish, were our 2 time frames that we're looking at. Important to note that this is organizational data, so each building, school building, and each department have their own data unique to their departments and their buildings. So they have their 3 wins, their 3 areas for growth. They're sharing with their staff. A lot of them are doing it this Friday. And again, in June 9th, we have our meeting, and we'll be building strategies and understanding what each individual are doing and how that impacts the whole organization. So, any questions on any of the data? You guys have seen pieces of it. So, okay. All right. And I would just like to really emphasize, we did through the committee meetings, but just a great thanks to the voters, not only for the support, but the fantastic turnout. We had close to 10,000 voters, get out for the single ballot initiative. And when you look at some of the other districts of our size, they experience somewhere between 4,000 and 6,000 voters. So kudos to our voters, and thanks for all the support. Thank you to you as a board. We've had an incredibly busy few weeks here with all of the graduations and celebrations, and you as volunteers giving up your time and trying to run to your kids' events in between these events, between retirement and the board meeting and so on. But really appreciate you being attentive to all of those things as well. Really happy that you saw many of those agreements, collective bargaining agreements in our agenda tonight. We have, I believe, 2 left. The team has been working really hard to complete those within the parameters, so I'm really thankful about that. I'm really looking forward to Mr. Tom Hosford coming as our Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, which was on the agenda this evening. And we also will have our OB principal selected in June. At the June board meeting, we'll have that ready for you as well. So the May consensus revenue meeting occurred. Ultimately, the school aid fund was in a positive, but overall the general fund projections were down, which oftentimes affects the school aid fund. So it'll be, again, this was the information that was really needed for the budget processes to really get going. I hold no hope that we will have a budget by the end of June, and so Julie will work her magic and have some educated estimates when we create the budget for the following year. So just to keep on your radar, there's still lots of discussion on Medicaid cuts, which will impact all states and schools. And then certainly there's the voucher program that's being talked about as well, which impacts public schools and funding and all of that. And also the free breakfast and lunch programs are something that's heavily being talked about as a cut or a reduction at the federal level, which would clearly impact all schools as well. And then the last thing I would recognize around legislative pieces is that there was a school safety bill that has passed the House with bipartisan support, so that's a good sign as far as it, making it through. Ultimately, for us as a school district, there really was one committee that they were recognizing that needs to be present in the school, which we currently have, and the other pieces were peripheral to our responsibilities as a school district. So a lot going on, and there's not a ton happening in the legislative branches, but just stay alert.
Thank you for that. Is there any board communication tonight?
I just want to remind everyone that if they wanted to find updates on what's happening with the bond and all the construction projects, they can go to FHPS.net. Just scroll down, find that button. There's a wealth of information, and OAK is keeping a blog frequently updated with pictures and details of all the projects across our district. So I know sometimes parents want more details on what's happening there, and it is all there.
I would just like to say that we had a great week last week at graduations. I get a lot of comments from people thanking us for going to all 3 graduations, and that must be really tiring, and I truly don't feel like that. I really love them. I think it's incredibly inspiring and hopeful, just to kind of see all those kids walk across the stage and have so much in front of them, and kind of have this shared bond of a Forest Hills education, and to hear the student speakers. And I love graduations. I think they're a highlight of the year for sure, as a board member. And then I did also just want to say a huge thank you to Superintendent Kirby for our first retirement ceremony that we just had downstairs, to honor the teachers, the staff members who are retiring this year. I believe it was 919 hours of service to the district. Years. Not hours, years. Yours is much more impressive. 919 years of service to the district. And I was just really struck when I was listening to all their principals or their supervisors read something about them, just the level of expertise that we have present in this district. I mean, things were mentioned like, you know, master's degrees and things like curriculum teams, instructional leadership, grant writing, behavioral intervention experts, cognitive engagement strategies, people who were not really in the classroom necessarily, but took it upon themselves to come up with new strategies for keeping their buildings clean, or an aid type position. And so I just think it's just really amazing to hear how much dedication and time we have people putting into this district on a regular basis. And I felt like that new format of recognizing our retirees was just truly honoring to all of that service. So I really appreciate you getting the ball rolling on that.
So thank you for acknowledging that, and just know it was a major team effort.
Yes.
For sure. A lot of people ahead.
Well executed.
I just comment, I know, kind of back to the beginning of the meeting, where, you know, we had a motion for new public comment. We've talked about that before as well, we've had that idea before. I actually think this Great for State process helped to illustrate the proper way to go about that, maybe for a community who wants questions answered, who has concerns about things that we're doing. Because we've been engaged with many people for weeks and weeks and beyond that, who have had questions, who have wanted discussions, who have gotten time to come in to the people who know, the administrators, and be here, have back and forth with us. And I think that's been a fruitful way to address those concerns and talk back and forth and hear what those concerns are. I would continue to advocate that, you know, inserting sort of ad hoc on sort of just miscellaneous topics, additional public comment periods. I just don't know what that would add for us, you know, after we've been engaged with this stuff for a month and learning all of this. And then to hear additional comments 10 minutes before we're about to vote, without an ability to digest and discuss and verify and those kinds of things. So I actually think this Great for State process highlighted well the ability of concerned community members to enter the process and get their questions answered in the weeks leading up to votes, not the minutes leading up to votes. So I just thought that was a good example of that process in action.
Well, I want to add that I think back when we first started, before I came on the board, public comment was at the beginning and it got moved. And I think sometimes people, they have busy lives, their schedules, and yes, they can send an email and they're getting their answers, you know, questions answered, but also to hear the voice from the very community that elected us to be the trustees and to be their voices on this board. I feel like having a public comment to hear, even if it's just something that somebody here might be like, man, I'm not sure which way I'm gonna vote, is to get additional feedback from the very people that put us in power here to represent them. I think I don't like to silence the voice of the community. They pay the bills to get this going. And it's, yes, I can see where, people asking lots of questions before we had a vote on this. I can see where that's beneficial, but I think there's nothing wrong with an added public comment to hear from the very voices that these children or their grandchildren, and they pay for the school to run. It's their tax dollars at work, to hear from their voices, and I don't like to have that silence. So that's why I asked for it. It's been asked several times, and so that's, and I probably will continue to ask for public comment to be put usually back, probably where it should be, is at the beginning, not at the end. After the votes happen, what do people have to say after the vote's taking place? That almost seems odd. Like, I want to hear from them before we take the vote, not after.
Well, and that, I don't want it to be confused. I'm not saying we don't want to hear the comment. We do. In fact, I'm arguing that it's more effective for us to understand and take in and to actually inform our decision if we have that days and weeks in advance, like we have in this case, to with some examples, rather than a couple of minutes before we're about to take the vote. That was all.
I just want to add to that. I think back in the day, before I even ran for office and I would sit in these meetings, this room where we were at, we went to every school, it was filled with people. Like, not just this, it was filled with people coming up to the mic, expressing concerns or expressing their gratitude for what was happening in the school. And since then, the numbers have dwindled drastically. It was a good thing to have at the beginning. So that's,
I mean, to be fair, it was a very turbulent, different time than it is now too, so that might have been part of the reason for that, but is there any other board communication? Okay. So then at this time, we are gonna welcome members of the community to address the board. When you are called, please come up to the microphone and state your name and your address. And limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please direct all comments to the board. Per established procedures, we will not respond to questions or interact with the speaker during public comment. Everyone who indicates they would like follow-up from the district will receive it from the appropriate administrator. If your name is called and you have changed your mind about speaking, you may just let us know that you are passing. And we have Mr. Holly is going to do our timer for us tonight on his phone. All right. First one we have is Tom Nemchuk.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. This is an interesting night, speaking to this. One of my dear friends, longtime friends, is a woman by the name of Ruth Rondon. If you don't know who Ruth Rondon is, I would highly recommend you look her up. She's actually from Grand Rapids, and Ruth was sex trafficked, human trafficked, starting at age 13 from the Grand Rapids area. And I think we owe it to everyone, all of these students, to prevent that type of activity from happening. Because of that, I came with a book that two of my friends who have been working against child sex trafficking for years wrote. It's a simple 18-page book, all referenced and cited. And as a community member, I have no idea what I can do to get this book into the hands of our libraries or students in this community. No idea. How do I get this book? It's a simple 18-page book that is very inclusive. One of the things that I routinely hear about Forest Hills is the bullying that occurs in the school, and I think the survey results prove that out, that bullying is a major problem in Forest Hills. I've seen a video within the last year of a student being beaten in the school lunch area. It's unbelievable to me that these things are occurring. Anyway, this book is designed to address some of those issues, the bullying that happens. This book is written for parents and educators. This book has been designed for you to first preview the facts in the boxes at the bottom of each page. As you read, you can use these facts to initiate conversation and discussion with your child. You are encouraged to safely share as much or as little as your child needs to resolve his or her understanding of pronoun use, boundaries, and truth. The reading portion of the book for children is at the top of each page. These pages have rhyming words that are bolded. Capitalized words should be read with emphasis and explanation. To help engage your child, we have used shapes as people, and these different colored shapes have gentle and scientific chromosome indicators of their pronouns. Correlate this book to real life. Your child will more likely retain knowledge. If you are an educator, please note that we fully believe it is morally responsible to follow the law with discussions of sexuality. Parents should be notified of any instruction that and allowed to opt their child out with an alternative provided. Speaking of which, this book that was mentioned tonight with the topless woman, I wonder if that has gone before the sex education SEAB. I don't know if that's true or not. It would be nice to get a response from the board. Furthermore, if you haven't already familiarized yourself with the components to make up sexuality, please do so. We recommend you research the 5 circles of sexuality.
Thank you very much.
Happy to buy this for the school district.
All right, next we have Dr. David Urban.
Oh, pass.
Okay. Next we have Adrian Urban.
Hello. I sent an email out just before the meeting, so I know that you probably got it, maybe didn't read it. I'll switch things up a little bit here. The first thing I want to say is to address the the stakeholder issue and the comment period. I respect what you said. I also respect what Holly said. I think that having it before is imperative because while your perspective is very valid, I can only approach one person, maybe two, but to have all of you here from out here gets one person to many ears instead of to just one or two. So I think that Mr. Gore's viewpoint is actually accurate. I know that I feel like my voice has been taken away. I also have felt that way, and I know Mr. Hager here, I got to talk to him after the last meeting, and I mean all of this with extreme respect for everyone here, and the teachers and the curriculum developers, everything, because a lot of people have a lot of knowledge here that I don't have, and vice versa. I have knowledge that you all don't have, and we all need to listen to each other, like was emphasized at that one meeting, where I think my husband spoke about listening to each other. Everyone here is valuable in different ways. We were told during the bond campaign that we were all stakeholders, and because we were paying the bills, right? And I feel that every time I write the check. I feel like we've had our voice taken away at the meetings. I feel also like our voices have been taken away. When I spoke to Mr. Hayden, I don't mean disrespect about this, but he said, do you have a student of concern? It's all of them. This is our community. We care about the community, even if our kids are homeschooled, even if we're grandparents, even if we just moved here in our 60s. It doesn't matter. This is our community. We care about the kids. And I feel like we should have a voice, not just on how much the bills are, but on the books, on the curriculum, on the teaching, all of it. Because these are our kids. Changing my glasses. I was concerned when you say to trust the experts on the curriculum. Again, I don't know that much about curriculum. I mean, I know some. I've been a teacher for many years, probably decades in different arenas, corporate, through the government, all kinds of things. But when I talked to Mr. Haight after the meeting, he said that he didn't care about the backgrounds of the people who wrote the curriculum. He only cared about the curriculum. And I think all of us would agree that bias and background is important to know about when you read a curriculum or any kind of book, correct? One of the concerns I had about Ms. Chapman, calling herself Chap, is that she wrote in her book, in her piece, Bias Starts Early, with other people, that the nurturing mother is a stereotype that should be challenged. Is that really something that we want to have here, is to say that maybe mothers shouldn't be nurturing? I understand that some kids have parents that aren't nurturing, and we can listen to that, but I don't think we should say, gee, this is how mothers should be. So that's my perspective on that. Also on the demographics that you referred to, Dr. Mashad, when you said that we should have other perspectives, absolutely 100%. And I don't think anybody is challenging that at all. In fact, I don't like a white-only thing. I was in Black Gospel Choir. I've lived in fully Black neighborhoods where I was the odd man out. The issue here, and I know that you voted on the curriculum already, but just to keep it in mind, it's who this curriculum was meant for. And it's heavy, heavy books from the minorities. I just have to stop.
Thank you very much.
You need to allow us to have two, and sometimes if somebody backs up, but thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Melissa Yeomans.
Hi, I'm a parent in the district, and I have a son who's in 3rd grade and a daughter who's in 6th grade, and I wasn't planning to speak tonight. I am disappointed with the new curriculum addition, and also wanted to voice a little bit of concern over some of the ideas that I heard tonight, especially since this has been selected by our literary experts who reviewed these books. So my family has been deeply impacted by the issues brought up, and the issue of a transgender identity. And my concern is, and my experience has been, that as book clubs focused on social issues are put into the hands of children as old as 11, currently my daughter's experiencing one of those now. It's sort of a lesbian love romance story for 11-year-olds that has been put in the hands of her classmates. And so, you know, I understand some of the ideas that the principal had previously shared with me, that they're finding things online, they're doing all, you know, they're gonna learn this anyway, it's out there. But my concern is that as these controversial issues and issues that impact our families are brought before our kids earlier and earlier, it forces those conversations that we have to have as parents, where what now our 5 or 6 year olds, we're going to have to discuss why their pre-K teacher is going to show them these images and what that means. And I just think it's really divisive, and I'm not sure if that's where our entire community is at. I know that members have shared that they're happy to read these books to their children, but I would like to, I'd have more to share about like personal things, but this is a public format. And so out of respect for family members, my own children, and other classmates' children, I don't want to bring all of that in front of you out here. But it's really sensitive and it's really concerning, and I'm really challenged by the news tonight in thoughts of where do I school my own children? Because if this is the way the district's going, if these social issues, social justice issues are going to be an underlying issue of all of this curriculum, then I guess I have some hard decisions to make as a parent. So, thanks.
Thank you. And Vicki Slack.
Hi, Vicki Slot, 2 granddaughters coming in next year, a third eligible for the Young Fives. I too am very disappointed. I have to talk quickly because 3 minutes, this is a huge topic. I'd specifically like to address that I got interested because I was excited, looked at the farm to table unit, found an exclusion of educational content because of the emphasis on identities, families, and local communities. So as I looked into it, I looked further, I thought, well, that's curious. And I found on the first page that this was developed specifically for the demographic group that we've talked about. Now, as Maggie said, I agree. Like, what's good for one kid is pretty good for another, and I'm not minimizing individual differences in needs. However, what is the deal? What does this mean when you develop a curriculum? And I can tell you what I found and what this means. And what this means is that they developed this, unfortunately, written with the purpose of emphasizing social identities. They did not include much about characteristics of personal successes, that we need, hard work, etc., and for accepting all diversity and encouraging social activism. And this is clear in this curriculum, stated by the developers, the experts who developed this curriculum. I will quote directly from them. Direct quote, all aspects of the GFE curriculum focus on equity and justice for children from historically underrepresented. Quote, the Great First State curriculum in its design positions transformative social emotional learning as foundational to children's learning. It works to identify causes of inequity, strives to create solutions to the community, and so this community emphasis and social problems. Transformative SEL facilitates an equitable learning environment to understand and address issues of power, social justice, privilege, and discrimination, including, they say, race, gender, and family structure are central aspects of children's development. This is very clear in this curriculum. If you look at the units, it's integrated throughout in every activity in every unit. And so, Maggie, I have to say, teachers, if they want to modify it, they will not be able to modify this curriculum because the scaffolding and the integration, which is such a beautiful thing in education, but what they used it for in this curriculum will not suit many families, as she just stood up. Derwin Sparks, with his GFE team, calls what they call anti-bias education. Like, we're not doing a little diversity here. The underpinning framework permeates everything in childhood education, and that was their purpose and mission. Now, that's not a terrible mission to try to overcome inequities, but asking our children take their emotions, their beautiful feelings, and promote social activism in our children is not the job of this school.
All right, thank you so much.
Excuse me. Sorry, I'm sorry. Can I reverse my pass? I was called on very early, and I'd like to respond briefly.
Okay, since
Thank you very much.
Sure.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Hi, David Urban. I just want to respond to this with regards to what was just shared. If I could just speak specifically to the double mastectomy matter that you mentioned. I don't know all the details, if this woman is walking around with no shirt on or what have you, but regarding matters of gender diversity and acceptance, et cetera, different kinds of families, I'm going to hazard a guess that this is being done not because the woman had breast cancer, but because it was a decision to do what she perceived as changing her gender. And I think it's, how can I say, it seems obvious that something like that is being done to try to normalize such decisions in the eyes of 5-year-olds. And I'm asking, are they telling these same children, here are the consequences, the health consequences for these kinds of gender changing, allegedly, because I don't believe you really can do that, but are they explaining the health consequences for these kinds of decisions? Because young people are making these kinds of decisions. And then they realize, oh my goodness, I didn't understand all of the health consequences. So if you want to get people used to seeing people do this, I would hope, and again, these little children can't understand much. They just see that and they are going to have a response, and you're trying to normalize it when you allow that. You're trying to normalize that as opposed to, it's good, I think, for them to be horrified if they see someone do something like that to herself. Are you going to explain as part of this curriculum what the long-term health consequences are, physical health as well as emotional health, for people who mutilate themselves in this manner? Because the evidence is out there, and it's sobering, and the evidence is being hidden from most audiences. Thank you very much.
Public comments are closed. The board thanks you for your input, and the appropriate district representative will follow up with those who requested it on their cards. Is there any other business